Don't just read, annotate. Use the CFR approach, content, form, rhetorical. The goals and outcomes for this slideshow are: you will understand what annotation is, why we annotate, and how to annotate effectively. After the presentation, we hope you will have a greater understanding of all three. What is annotating? Annotating is a form of note-taking. Why annotate? To ensure you retain information you have read by engaging with the text, and to process what you read to get the most out of it and learn. How do you annotate? Make notes in the margins while you read. Why not just highlight? Highlighting is a passive process. Does not allow you to process information or content, does not allow you to understand the structure of the reading, form, and does not allow you to engage with the text and make connections, rhetorical. Annotating is an active process. There are three types of annotating, which is also known as close reading. This is an active process that allows you to fully engage with the text. We will focus on three types of annotations: content, form, and rhetorical annotations. Close reading takes time. Allow yourself sufficient time to conduct a close reading. It will take you longer than 5 minutes. Read through the material 2 to 3 times in order to fully engage and process the material to get the most out of it. We're going to start with content annotations. So content annotations include key points defined in the margin notes, words you need to look up or don't understand, key terms or definitions that are part of the discipline you will need to remember, and summarizing sections of the text. By doing this work, you will remember what you have read. The second type of annotating is form annotations. Form annotations include identifying the main point or the thesis, making note of genre features, which we'll talk about in the next slide, and labeling the parts in the margins, like the introduction, the conclusion, if there's a claim or a reason, or types of evidence, or examples, or a literature review, or research methods, or results if it's a lab report. By doing this work, you will better understand the genre and anticipate key sections. So what does genre mean? Genre is any form or type of communication in any mode with socially agreed upon conventions developed over time. So here's a little cluster of genres, and this is all just literature, but there are many more genres than just literature. Is a travel magazine a genre of writing? Absolutely. What writing conventions or elements are necessary to write successfully format an email? Let's look at the next slide. An email is another genre of writing. Let's analyze an email's writing conventions. What elements do you see? Subject, English 101-00 homework question. Dear Professor Hagen, my name is Will Workhard and I am enrolled in your English 101-00 class that meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. I reviewed your syllabus and course calendar and had a question about tonight's homework. I am supposed to contribute to the discussion board on my courses, but I can't seem to find the link for it. Could you offer me direction? Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. Kindest regards, Will. So what are the required elements that you notice there? Number 1, a clear and short subject line. And in fact, a key to that is, if you're writing to a professor, saying what class you're in and what the email is about. Salutations, saying hello. Identifying yourself. Explaining the reason for the email. Thanking the recipient if you are asking them to do something, and offering a proper send-off. Kindest regards. And then just for my students only, I would say, please do not send me an email asking me a question about homework. Post it on the class discussion board in our course site, and I'm sure a peer can answer that for you. How does a text message as a genre differ from an email? Are you kidding me? Laugh out loud. They are so different. I don't know why you asked. And please, 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 email is not in the least little bit texting. So here's some genre examples: letters, op-ed, newspaper articles, lab reports, rap music, classical music, punk music, memoir, modern art, Renaissance art, a children's book, fantasy fiction, horror movie or fiction, science fiction movie or fiction. Are you getting this? Genres are unlimited almost. You could think of hundreds off the top of your head. We could have a contest to see who named the most. Understanding genre is essential to a close reading and form annotations, because you have to be seeing whether those genre conventions are being met. And also, as you're reading in college, you want to pay attention to genre conventions because you'll most likely have to write and create in those genres. So when you're reading a lab report, you can anticipate that in the future you will be writing a lab report. If you're reading a newspaper article in my class, you can anticipate that you'll be writing a newspaper article in my class. Remember, form annotations include identifying the main point or thesis, making note of genre features, labeling the parts in the margins, introduction, conclusion, claim, reason, types of evidence, example, lit review, research message, results, etc. By doing this work, you will better understand the genre and anticipate key sections. The third type of annotations is rhetorical annotations. And if you haven't already watched the rhetorical situation PowerPoint, you will want to go back and watch this, because this is just a review slide, right? So the rhetorical situation has three parts that balance and work together to create the text or the message. The writer or speaker or creator has appeals based on the character, expertise, and reputation of the writer or speaker or creator, and that's ethos. Second is the audience or consumer, and those are appeals based on the values and beliefs of the audience, or emotional appeals, that's pathos. And then the subject includes appeals based on logic, reasoning, and facts, and that's logos. Rhetorical annotations include personal experiences and reactions evoked by the text. So you might be writing in the margins, what, why, says who, I disagree, this reminds me of, right? Connections to other texts. Oh, this other thing I read also talked about this subject, or disagrees with this subject, or agrees with this point. Notes about the writer. I don't know if I trust her because, or, oh, wow, I agree with her. Like, I have that experience as well. Notes about the intended audience, or the value of the text for the intended audience. So if you're reading a newspaper article, you got to think about what the newspaper is, if they're conservative or liberal, and then whether the message is resonating or working for that intended audience. You also want to think about purpose, what the audience should think or do after reading, and whether that purpose is working for the intended audience. Again, intended audience, not you. When you're reading a peer-reviewed journal on composition theory, I'm the audience as a writing instructor, right? You are not the audience. So you got to think about who the audience is and what they're bringing to it as readers, and what they should be getting out of it. And then also rhetorical annotations include inferences about the social significance of the text, right? So you might think about like, this is a really interesting point about Black Lives Matter, right? Like, this is a new point, and obviously this is socially significant because, right? So depending on the subject matter, you got to think about how this subject is impacting the world beyond this little text or video or song, or fill in the blank, fill in the genre there. So content form rhetorical, why do all three? The chart on the following slide demonstrates the changes in reading and writing that occur when reading is done more thoroughly, according to reading experts Haas and Flowers. So benefits of rhetorical reading and its effect on your reading and writing. So this rhetorical reading that I'm asking you to do is the content form rhetorical annotations. So in terms of a rhetorical awareness, when you're inexperienced, you read only for knowledge getting. So you're like a bucket and you think you're reading just to like quickly learn stuff and memorize some facts, right? And if you're inexperienced in terms of rhetorical awareness, when you write, you're writing for knowledge telling. So you're kind of proving like that you understand or learned what you were supposed to learn, and you might quote the source and just move that information along, right? An experienced person in terms of rhetorical analysis and awareness does constructive reading. So they're building knowledge. They're not considering what they're reading static. They're actually engaging with it, and possibly in their annotations, constructing new ideas and new knowledge in those margin notes, which then facilitates how they write, right? So if you're experienced in terms of the rhetorical situation, you're a constructivist. When you write, you don't simply kind of pass on what you learned from the sources, but you join those sources in conversation, right? So if two sources agree and one disagrees, you present that conversation and how they agree and disagree, and then you contribute something, a new idea, right? It's not just your job to report, it's your job to join the conversation and offer new ideas. Before reading, understand the rhetorical situation before you read and annotate for better learning. Who's the intended audience? Think about the demographics, their income, age, gender, interest, expertise on the subject. Who's the writer and what's the publication? So is the writer credible in their own right? Are they an expert or are they a journalist? And if they're a journalist, what's the publication and how credible is that? And then you just want to think about the publication in terms of whether it's popular or scholarly. So scholarly meaning a peer-reviewed journal that's written by experts for other experts versus popular, Time Magazine, Newsweek, Rolling Stone, all that. What's the subject and how has the subject been presented to the reader or consumer? So you just want to flip through and look at the layout of it. That are there headers, are there charts, are there graphs, are there visuals? Like get a sense of it before you sit down and actually start reading it. During reading, this is a packed slide, right? So in terms of content, identify key points, identify words you need to look up or don't understand, identify key terms and definitions that you'll need to remember, and summarize sections of the text in the margins so that you can at a glance find particular sections that you want. In terms of form during reading, identify the main point or the thesis in the margin. Note any genre features that you're noticing and label the parts, the introduction, the conclusion, claim, reason, types of evidence, all of that type of thing. And then in terms of rhetorical annotations while you're reading, note personal experiences and reactions. What, why, says who, I disagree, this reminds me of. Note connections to other texts. Note anything you learned about the writer and their ethos, whether it's building them as credible or in your mind, undermining their credibility. Note anything you notice that the intended audience will agree or disagree with, and that's purpose, right? So you're really thinking about who the intended audience is and how this is going to fly with them or not. And notes about why this is important for the intended audience or the social significance of the text. So that's all during your first read. Now we get into the second reading, right? In the second reading, in terms of content annotations, you want to clarify those key points that you've identified in the margins, right? You want to actually look up and note those words that you don't understand in the margins. So write the definitions there. You want to clarify key terms and definitions that are part of the discipline you will need to remember in the margin notes. So, this is important. This is jargon specific to, business marketing. So I've got to learn these key terms, right? So those types of things. And then summarize sections of the text in the margins that you missed the first time so that at a glance, you'll be able to go back and find key sections that you want and know what the content was. Second read through for form, confirm the main point or thesis that you identified, note any additional genre features that you notice, and label any additional parts that you notice. And then finally, for rhetorical annotations in the second read, add more personal experiences and reactions evoked by the text. Note any additional connections you can make to other texts or things that you've watched or listened to, any connections to things outside of this text, right? Note anything else you can infer about the writer and their ethos or credibility. Note anything else you notice that the intended audience will agree or disagree with, and confirm the purpose that you identified, what you think the audience should think or do after reading. And then confirm why this is important for the intended audience. Like you get, what the significance of the text is. Reread 2 to 3 times to fully develop your annotations. Don't just read, annotate. Annotate content, annotate form, annotate rhetorical. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps you really develop your annotations. And this work will radically change how you process what you read, how you react to what you read, and ultimately how you write in response to what you read. It'll make you a better thinker, a better debater, a better arguer, and you'll learn more. Thanks for watching.